Hey Gators and sports fans, get all your Gator talk, news, analysis, and opinions on the Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform or watch us on Facebook Live between 8 a.m. and 9 a.m. every weekday. Pod Up, because we are Gator fans. So say it's great to be a Florida Gator.
Good morning and welcome to a Thursday edition of the program. It's Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning from the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. It's Thursday. That means we have our college football analyst, Brent Beaird, talking the world of college football, a lot of stuff going on. And in the second portion, it's the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. We'll have the PrepZone.com Main Street Daily News, Mike Ridaught. We're hot and heavy into high school basketball. It's winding down, and baseball and softball have cranked up. Some news and notes: baseball wins last night. Softball, Natalie Lugo throws her second career no-hitter. So softball continues to roll as usual, and they will do that until SEC play rolls around. But let's go ahead and head on over to the Titan MR hotline, and we're joined by our college football analyst, Heisman Trophy voter, Brent Beaird. Good morning, Brent. How are you?
Shane, I'm doing fine. It's good to talk to you. Crazy that we're having 85-degree weather in February, but we are. But that's going to end this weekend as we get back to normal, enjoying SEC hoops and what's going on with that. But as always, we love college football year-round, and there's plenty going on.
Yeah, there really is. And, I guess the biggest talk well, first, let's talk a little bit about there's some intriguing games. Week 0. I can't figure out why they're calling it Week 0 now when there's more than one game being played. Why isn't that just Week 1?
Well, it actually should be, but for some reason they kind of get stuck on this Week 0 stuff. Now, there's a pretty good slate here. Fox has the Nebraska Northwestern game. That's going to be up. Now there are also several other intriguing games. Florida A&M at North Carolina, Wyoming at Illinois is 7 p.m. UConn at Utah State. Utah State plays Alabama in the opener the next week. Now people may not realize this, or they may have forgotten about it, but Duquesne goes to Florida State. So Florida State actually plays Week 0. It's a weak opponent, but we'll explain why that's important in a minute. Nevada at New Mexico State is at 9 p.m. on what's called Aggie Vision. I think that's interesting. And lo and behold, at 11:30 on CBS Sports Network, Vanderbilt goes to Hawaii. So I think Shane and I need to go cover that Vandy-Hawaii game, in my opinion. So now, and I'll go through this real quick. Shane, on Thursday, the first Thursday, which is always a big day, you've got games like Penn State, Purdue, West Virginia, Pitt. How about that? The backyard brawl. And New Mexico State at Minnesota, Central Michigan and Oklahoma State. Now, these have not been confirmed, but there's a little bit of speculation, and I think this is just more out of guesses from the guy who wrote this article that probably has more time than you and I do, that South Carolina, Georgia State could be moved to that first Thursday night, and or Memphis at Mississippi State. So, Shane, at some point, we'll see before SEC Media Days in July, which is going to be in Atlanta this year, by the way. People haven't heard that. That we will have at least one, if not two, probably SEC games, don't you think, Shane, on that first Thursday?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Brent. But a lot of stuff will change around, obviously, between now and then regarding on who covers what. I guess the biggest talk in college football in the last week or so has been the college football playoff, Brent. And I talked about it, I guess, Monday maybe, or maybe it was last week on my show. I don't follow it closely. You've been following it much closer. Just kind of skimming through notes, and is this all because of the damn Rose Bowl?
Well, unfortunately, it has a lot to do with that. This is a lot of petty infighting that never should have happened. This was a colossal failure on the part of these commissioners to not get this done. They've had a lot of time. The vote, we understand, was 8-3. The ACC, the Big Ten, and the Pac-12 voted against it. As Shane said, the Rose Bowl has a lot to do with this. They are so determined to have this Rose Bowl at the time they've got it, so they can see the sunset on the San Gabriel Mountains. I think we've all had enough of that by now. But look, what college football's got to do, they've got to say, look, we respect your tradition, we respect the Rose Bowl and the name that goes with it, but guys, you're either going to have to play along here, or we're going to go without you. So the big problems here, and I'll be brief with this, my understanding is, and this actually comes from Mark Keenum, who is at Mississippi State, the president. He's the chairman of the board for the College Football Playoff Committee. He has said that the problem was the format. Do you go 8 games or 12? I think most everybody wants 12. Automatic qualifiers, how many of those do you have? The number of extra games, that's just rhetoric. That's not going to be the major decision there. And the Rose Bowl, as we said. Now, I will talk about this as long as you want to talk about it, but in the brevity of time, one of the big things that happened here, and I give Matt Hayes credit for this. Matt Hayes does radio here at 1010. He also is a really good writer. Has been for years with Sport News. Now he's with Saturday Down South. Matt says this could play out one of 5 ways. They could keep it status quo in 4 years, which they're not. They could have a double secret meeting in the next few months, and all sides agree. Or the ACC could dig in, refuse to budge, and the SEC and the Big Ten make expansion moves to further weaken the remaining 3 Power 5 conferences. Or the Pac-12 and the Big 12 could form a super conference trying to maximize games that can draw 4 million viewers. Or the ACC nearly left for dead during the last round of the expansion before poaching the Big East can't fend off the SEC and the Big Ten and the newly formed conference. And I know all that's convoluted, but he laid out about 5 ways that could happen. The biggest mistake they made in this is they made a situation where the vote had to be unanimous. That was a humongous mistake. The vote ended up being 8-3. Majority rules, and at this point, we're getting on with it. That's what they should have done.
Yeah, and I talked about it because I saw a couple of shows. I can't remember what it was, Brent. And I know they talked about going from 4 to 8 to 12 or whatever. I personally don't understand why, when you look at FCS, a step right below D1, they have 24 teams in their playoffs every year. Right,
they do.
Then Division Two has 28 teams, and Division 3 has 32. Okay, and I don't want to hear this garbage about you're going to see blowouts. Well, you see the blowouts in FCS. The dominant team is North Dakota State in James Madison. They blow everybody out, then they get to the championship game. But people enjoy watching it. I can't imagine the amount of money if you went to 24 teams. I want to say at 12, it was something like $540 million that the TV people had already thrown at them. And it's the only sport, and it's the greatest sport out there outside of NFL football, in my opinion, that they're just screwing it up. And I don't know why it's so hard. We had a Facebook Live here referring to the Rose Bowl. It came from, let me see if I can scroll back up here. It came from John. He says, "Are we watching the Rose Bowl for football or a sunset?" I mean, come on. But it's true
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
technically, if they didn't care about the sunset, they would play this game where people on the East Coast could watch it at night and get better ratings. I saw where the Sugar Bowl is now, which has been played on New Year's night for as long as I can remember, is going now to New Year's Eve at noon.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Before the college football playoffs, and again, now my understanding is this year about New Year's Eve is going to be on a Saturday, but still, the ridiculous decision to play the playoffs on New Year's Eve continues because a lot of people are going to do their New Year's Eve thing, and the powers to be have never understood that about how ridiculous it is to have that. What Shane was saying a minute ago, by not agreeing on a 12-team playoff the last 2 years of the current deal, they are passing up $450 million in additional television revenue and 16 extra playoff spots. So that's the problem you've got. Now, I've even heard that at some point, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but this is just conjecture, okay, that Greg Sankey and the SEC, after OU and Texas joined, may just say, okay, we're going to go and do our own thing that may include the Big Ten or someone who's willing to do this, and just have our own playoffs. So, again, without belaboring the point too much, this never should have happened. They should have done this and decided already. But the other thing to me that's amazing. Now think about this a minute. The conferences that voted against it, the Pac-12 and the ACC, they're not going to get in the playoffs for the ACC unless Clemson is really good, and they weren't this year. And for the Pac-12, they're probably not going to get in the playoffs at all. And that's the conference that needed it more than anybody else, and they vote against it. So, it's absolute lunacy. We miss the days of Mike Sly from the SEC and Jim Delaney of the Big Ten, who, even though they disagreed, they got into a room, they figured it out, and they made a compromise, and they gave the nation the 4-team playoff, and there's no reason that we can't build on it.
No, and I'm a believer now on the model that the smaller classifications have. I think they need to go to 20. Yes. I think that minimum of 12. The greatest sport in the world has 14 teams playing in its playoff every year, the National Football League. And for them just to have 4, it's just when it first started, everybody was excited. Now it is ridiculous that the money that can be made, the excitement around the country with multiple teams being in it. Now, granted, I can tell you right now, I can give you 6 teams that are out of those 6, 4 of them are going to be in the 14 playoff next year. We all know who it's going to be, but you never know. I mean, whoever thought that Alabama was going to lose to Texas A&M this year? Their upsets happen. Now, will they happen a lot in the playoffs? Maybe not, but still, you give plenty of other teams opportunities to make a lot of money, to play in a big time game, and it just blows my mind how they're making this so damn difficult.
It is, and the bowls are involved. How will the bowls be involved? And the other thing too involved with this, and this will be my last comment, so we can move on, is we've got so many. The only TV option right now basically is ESPN, unless they want to share it. Now, what we're going to find in the next few years, Shane, is we're going to find all these streaming situations, Amazon, Facebook, just name it, with streaming. That don't think for a minute that those aren't also going to be involved in this TV deal.
Yeah, John says on Facebook Live here, and I totally disagree with it. He says, if you want different teams in the playoffs, then recruit better, invest in your team, and then just beat the teams and you are in. Well, there's only 4 that are going to get in, John. That's my point. And down here, someone said a couple of years ago, Florida could have caused serious problems to teams in the playoffs 2 years ago if they had gotten in as a low seed. Yeah, you got to see the big picture here.
That's right.
You know, just 4 teams. Think if the NFL did that. Think about it. If the NFL only allowed the 4 best teams in their playoffs, think about how many other wild cards, 7 seeds have gone on to win the Super Bowl. It's ludicrous, and they need to go ahead and get a commissioner, take our guy Greg Sankey, and let him run the damn thing, because he's the only commissioner that seems like knows what the hell's going on.
Right.
It's a shame. All right, let's switch gears a little bit. Man, I saw this stat about how many offensive coordinators have changed this year, Brent. It's truly amazing how many.
Well, it really is. We have had 61 changes at offensive coordinator, and there are basically 130 Division I schools. The latest change, obviously, being Kentucky and Liam Cohen, who is going back to the NFL. Shane, have you ever heard of that before?
No.
I don't think we've ever had that number of changes at offensive coordinator, which is almost half of the schools. And the reason for that, I think, Shane, is again, and we've said this a lot, football now is 7-on-7. And because of that, the offense is so incredibly important that if things aren't working, you make change probably sooner than you normally would. So when you think about that, I think that's one of the reasons they've had that many changes.
Yeah, it's you're right. But 61 offensive coordinators just this year is just it's crazy. All right, Brad, I know we talk about the portal stuff every week with you. You talk to me about what kids can and cannot do before the show started. Can you repeat that so our listeners can hear it?
Yeah, I'll be glad to. We've actually talked about are there limitations on the transfer portal, and there actually are. There are a couple of big ones we need to be aware of. The deadline for fall and winter sports with the transfer portal is May 1. The deadline for spring sports is July 1. Now, what the reason it's going to be important is this: spring football games are in April. And look, we've got some people. You've got the 9th, 16th, which is Easter weekend, the 23rd, and the 30th. Okay, if you're going to transfer, what this means is you're going to transfer pretty quickly after your spring game. So that means that there are going to be a lot more people probably in the transfer portal before May 1. Now, the other question here is, what about transferring from one SEC school to the other? In order to gain immediate eligibility, a student athlete will need to declare his or her intent to transfer by February 1 for fall sports, May 1 for winter sports, and July 1 for spring sports. So I hope that helps a little bit with this. And the other question here is, when do athletes have to set out a year? Student athletes have to set out a year when they transfer to a Division I school for the second time. For instance, if a student athlete has played at 2, not 1, but 2 Division I schools and decides to transfer again, they will have to set out a year. So, Shane, what that tells you is, for some of these folks who have already transferred once and they go to a school and they don't like it, they may end up staying there longer because they know if they transfer, they're going to have to sit out. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's definitely. Hey, folks, Wrap Spot's opening its second location at 1931 North Main Street. They've teamed up with Vibrant Vinyl Works to offer color change wraps, advertising wraps, custom striping, hood wraps, and wall wraps. Speaking with Brent Beaird on the Titan MR hotline, we'll have our Baker Sporting Goods high school roundup in the second portion of the show. Brent, I go off on my tangents on the FHSAA all the time. This weekend, the big coaches clinic for Florida high school coaches down in Tampa, being sponsored by Baker Sporting Goods, by the way. They're going to have Billy Napier, Cristobal, some other big time college coaches speaking about. They're going to talk about being underpaid. There's so many great high school coaches that basically pack up and go elsewhere to Mississippi, Georgia, and Alabama because they can double and sometimes triple their salaries.
Right. Right.
I mean, what does the state of Florida have to do, in your opinion, to keep some of these great high school coaches?
Well, I think one of the things is they've got to. I hope this weekend is going to help. Now, Billy Napier, Jeff Scott, Mario Cristobal are going to be attending this event in Tampa, and I'm going to be very curious to see what comes out of this. What people may not understand is now, and this may have changed, and correct me on some of this. Mike Ridaught could do a good job of this too. Is Florida high school coaches, I understand, get a supplement, and that supplement may be more now. But I remember when it was like $6,000, and that was
It's not. And I'll tell you for a fact, in Alachua County, the head coach's supplement for football is maybe $4,000. Maybe.
Man, wow, that's just incredible. But see, what I've been told, and I've been told by coaches who have gone to Georgia, is as Shane said, some of these guys were making as football coaches for high schools. They're making either close or above six figures and a truck.
And don't teach.
Yeah, don't teach. Now, you've also got, and again, there's a lot of pressure when you do that. Sometimes you don't stay very long, but Shane's exactly right. We have too many really good high school coaches in the state of Florida who are either retiring or they're going to another state because of this.
Yeah, it's a mess. I got a couple of Facebook Lives here brought to you by Meldon Law. Andy says, Brent, any truth to JT Daniels going to Arizona State? If so, could he beat out Bear Bryant's grandson, Paul Tyson, for the starting job?
Well, if that happens, yes. He's a much better quarterback than Paul Tyson is. And Tyson's a big kid. He got a strong arm. And part of it is he just hadn't played a whole lot, so that might be possible. Now, I've also heard JT Daniels maybe to Auburn. I'm not saying that that's going to happen, but that may be a possibility. But it's a great question because JT Daniels is still out there in the transfer portal.
And all those damn Georgia Bulldog fans were wondering why he wasn't playing for the Georgia Bulldogs. And he has, 130-something schools he could go play at right now, and nobody's beating down his door. John also asked on Facebook Live, Brent, when you look at the staffs that Napier and Mario Cristobal have assembled, how does that affect Georgia and Alabama and their ability to get players from Florida? Do you think less players will now leave the state?
Well, I think that's very possible because these guys are excellent recruiters. I don't mean they're good recruiters. I mean they're excellent recruiters, and they're elite recruiters. So there's no question. They're going to keep some of these guys at home in the state of Florida instead of being cherry-picked by some of these major schools. So that's an astute point. And in my Florida note, I've actually got in here that says Napier mentioned that in the years when Florida won a national championship, Shane can affirm this, that the roster was 65 to 80% players from the state of Florida. That's fascinating, isn't it, Shane? So the point is keeping these kids home that are looking to go somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I agree with that. I saw that stat. Now, I will say things have skewed a little bit with so many teams being on TV, social media, because when you look at Alabama, what they've done in the Saban era, I mean, they got kids from all over the country. So, do you want to keep these great players in the state of Florida? Absolutely. But recruiting basically has become a national thing. Brent, in the SEC, obviously, it's amazing on Twitter. Some of these Gator fans got so upset. Ike Hilliard leads the Pittsburgh Steelers for whatever reason, is now the wide receiver coach for the Auburn Tigers. I texted him and just told him congratulations. I didn't ask any questions. I was shocked when I saw that, though.
Yeah. And frankly, this is a really good hire for Brian Harsin. Mm-hmm. I mean, he needed one. He needed a guy with a name. He needed a guy with SEC ties, and that's what he got. I mean, what he did, obviously, he had Mike Bobo and Derek Mason. Those guys are gone. Well, they had SEC ties, obviously. So he's ended up basically promoting some guys on his previous staff who were on the Auburn staff. But yeah, this caused a lot of raised eyebrows. Shane, I'm with you. I don't have any inside scoop as to why he left at this point, but sometimes guys just want to make changes, and it gives Ike an opportunity to really get in the league and see what that's like. What I'm going to be very curious about is, Shane, and we don't know the answer to this, what kind of recruiter is Ike going to be?
Yeah, because he's been coaching pro ball for quite some time, and it's an interesting move on his part. We don't know the reason. Maybe we'll find out eventually. On Facebook Live, back to the high school news, Joseph says, word on the street over here is that he has heard that Mike Coe's leading Madison to be the head coach at Coffee County up in Georgia. I've heard that too. I'm pretty sure it's going to happen. But another great coach from a great program going across the border to make more money. Let's see. We had another one here. Asa says it was shocking for sure to see him go to Auburn. Not so much for him going to Auburn. I just thought it was funny for him to leave the National Football League because now he's got to recruit. Brent, Georgia lost Matt Luke as their offensive line coach. I want to say basically he just said he wants to spend more time with his family. Was there any more to it than that?
No, that's pretty much it. It's my understanding that he had actually talked to Kirby Smart about this several weeks before it actually happened. Kirby Smart said, look, just go back and think about it, and we'll talk about it again. And they talked about it again, and so he decided he wanted to step down. I think, again, look, these guys get paid a lot of money. There's no denying that. They don't have a lot of time off. And that is something that with all coaches, especially if you have young kids, you've got to really think about what you need to do. Now, the obvious question is who's going to replace him. I've heard Alex Atkins at FSU's name mentioned. That's not saying it's going to happen, but that might be a possibility. Kirby also hired a Rutgers defensive back coach, Fran Brown. He's from New Jersey. Which probably will help them up there in recruiting some. So look, Georgia's like a lot of schools. They're still trying to figure out who's going to be on the staff.
Yeah. John says, I was surprised to see Ike go to Auburn because of the uncertainty at Auburn. Yes, but he signed a contract.
He did. Absolutely.
He's going to get that money no matter what happens at Auburn.
No doubt.
That is a good thing. All right, Brent, time flies by as always. Give us some nuggets before we get you out of here.
Yeah, Liam Cohen has left Kentucky and going back to the Rams. We mentioned this earlier, and I will be very interested to see kind of what they do with this. Brian Kelly announced all of his coordinators and his coaching staff yesterday. The former coordinators, Durante Jones, is going to the NFL with the Vikings. Jake Pease, the former offensive coordinator, is left. Not sure where he's going at this point either. But this is a pretty good staff. Frank Wilson is a name that a lot of people may not know. I'm sure you do. Running backs coach and associate head coach, one of the better recruiters in the nation. I don't mean just the SEC, in the nation. That's why he's over there. To Mississippi State, Western Michigan. Game was on October 7th, 2023. So they Stacy Brown was arrested on Monday, suspicion of controlled substance. So they'll go through the legal stuff with all that. Ole Miss has hired Western Kentucky D coordinator Maurice Crum as their co-defensive coordinator. Kerry Coleman, who was with TCU, is coming over to Ole Miss. I won't go into detail about this, but and Shane can elaborate on it later. But there was an interesting story about South Carolina about Spencer Rattler, that he actually was ready to transfer to Arizona State, but then opted against it when Jaden Daniels returned to school. And then after Spencer Rattler goes to South Carolina, Jaden Daniels decides he wants to leave Arizona State. So I hope everybody got that.
Yeah,
but
it's a mess.
Again, it is. And by the way, if folks may have heard, in case people missed this, Charlie Strong has been hired at Miami as their next linebackers coach.
Yep, I did see that. Meant to mention that as well. Brent, great stuff as always. We just never have enough time with you, my man. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you next week.
Good. We look forward to Mike Ridaught, who's one of the best.
Yes, he is. That's Brent Beaird. Join us on the Titan MR hotline. We're going to take a timeout. Come back, switch gears to the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup with our man, Mike Ridaught. You're watching and listening to Pod Up with Matthews in the morning.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips, it's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, My IT Masters, Gainesville Neon and Signs, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avera and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Ruse Ogra Agent, State Farm Insurance, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit podupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios at Celebration Point. That's where the Gators go to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, Regal Cinemas, Le Macaron, Dave & Buster's, Medici's, Palmetto Moon, and HBC's restaurant, Spurter's Gridiron Grill, now serving brunch on Saturday and Tuesdays. Saturday and Sundays, we'll see you at Celebration Point where the Gators go to celebrate. The reason I said Tuesday, HBC's restaurant is now open on Tuesdays for your dining pleasure. So let's go ahead and we appreciate Brent Beaird joining us on the Titan MR hotline. We're now going to switch gears to high school sports with the best in the business on the Titan MR hotline. Is our man Mike Ridaught from the PrepZone.com and Main Street Daily News. Good morning, Mike. How are you, buddy?
Very good, Shane. Fun time of year, obviously, with postseason wrapping up and the winter sports and baseball, softball season getting underway this past Monday.
Yeah, so I want to say right now in girls basketball, we're in the Final Four stage. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. No teams from Gainesville or Ocala made it to the Final Four. I guess the closest teams in the area, Wildwood in Class 1A, they actually beat Port St. Joe yesterday, 51-39. They will play against Ponce de Leon, who eliminated Madison County 52-22. That state championship game is coming up on Friday night at 7 o'clock. Outside of that, University Christian Jacksonville got beat yesterday. Bishop Kenny of Jacksonville will play today, I believe, in 4A. So that's about it from the North Central Florida area as far as girls basketball goes.
Yeah, we got a Facebook Live here from Mike, brought to you by Meldon Law. He says, Mike, excuse me, from Andy. He says, Mike, who's your pick between Wildwood and Ponce de Leon for the girls 1A title? We got people that listen to this show all over the state now, Mike.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, that's great. That's a good question because, the way Ponce de Leon put it on Madison County yesterday, but I saw Wildwood in person against Hawthorne. I broadcast that region final, and I believe Wildwood jumped out to a 13-0 lead in that game against Hawthorne. Obviously CI had gotten that team to 3 straight Final Fours. He was looking for his 4th straight Final Four bid, and they blew him out. We had a running clock in the second half of that game. So I'm gonna say Wildwood only because I've seen Wildwood in person. But it sounds like it should be a pretty good 1A state championship game tomorrow night.
Are you guys covering any of that?
We are not. We are going to be providing coverage of the boys' Final Four. I know we'll get to this in just a moment, but Hawthorne was a winner against Trenton on Tuesday night. They advanced to the Final Four and will play Stark Bradford. And actually, as it turns out, Shane, Marty Paulman is going to go to Lakeland, so he'll be broadcasting the Hawthorne Bradford game on 106.9 FM. I'm actually heading to Niceville next week. I'll be at the junior college boys or men's and women's basketball state tournaments. And I want to give a shout out to Santa Fe College men's basketball team. They're actually having a net cutting ceremony today to celebrate their Central Conference championship. Their championship is the 8th total conference championship in school history, their first in 10 years. So head coach Chris Morey, who's now won 5 since he began coaching there. Great season for Santa Fe College. They're 24-5 overall. They went 12-3 in the Central. So I will be in Niceville at Northwest Florida State College for that tournament, which starts next Wednesday.
Awesome, good stuff. Let's switch gears to the boys basketball. Some of the teams that are still left playing to try to get to the state title game.
Well, I noted the Hawthorne Hornets. Congratulations to Greg Bowie. They only played 15 games this year due to health reasons. But here they are back in the Final Four. They won the state championship in 2020. Last year, Wildwood knocked them out. This year, they knocked Wildwood out. They beat Wildwood in the district championship game and had to come back from, I want to say, 16, 17 points down to win that game. But it was so tough, Shane, in 1A just because of how strong 1A District 7 was this year. When I was on your show a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned to you that, Newberry was ranked number 1 in the state at one time this year. Williston, I believe they got as high as number 2 in the state. And actually, Hawthorne ends up surviving that game against Williston in the regional semifinals. They beat them by 3. Bronson had a good year. They were just outside the top 10, maybe 12, 13, something like that going into the postseason. And then Trenton. Trenton, after not winning a district title for 21 years, has now won back-to-back district championships and made back-to-back region final appearances. Heck of a job by Cedric Booth, their head coach, in his 3rd season. So because 1A District 7 was so strong, that ended up stealing a bid from Wildwood. Because, in the past, we always had the district champion and the district runner-up go to the state playoffs, but that's not the case now. It's based on a rating system. So because 1A District 7 was so strong, they got so many teams in, Newberry from that district, Trenton from that district, Williston. So 3 teams from 1A District 7 got into the postseason because of their strength of schedule. So a heck of a game on Tuesday night, Shane. Hawthorne ends up winning the game in double overtime. And it was pretty interesting, too, because there's no shot clock in high school basketball. When we went to that first overtime period, Hawthorne got the tip. Shane, they held the ball the entire 4 minutes of that first overtime to play for the final shot, but also to give their guys some rest. Greg Bowie says, I've never done that. And he said, my fans are probably wondering what the heck is going on because that's not Hawthorne basketball. But, that it was something to give C.J. Ingram and Jalen Ruth and, DJ Slater. Those guys probably played just about every minute of that double overtime game. And in the end, Hawthorne gets the win. They get 2 free throws from freshman C.J. Ingram, who's the son of Cornelius Ingram, He hits 2 free throws with 6 seconds to play in double overtime to win it 40-39. But I think it also speaks volumes of just how far this Trenton program has come, because Trenton was 0 for 17 against Hawthorne since 2007 going into that game. And the fact that the Tigers almost had a chance to win. They had a chance to win in regulation. They also hit a big three. Xavier Jones hit a three with 1:18 to play in double overtime to give them a 39-36 lead. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this is an opportunity for Trenton to get to their first ever Final Four. But the Hornets turned it up on defense. They forced 3 turnovers on Trenton's final 4 offensive possessions, and they ended up coming back to win that game to advance to Lakeland. As I mentioned, they were 2020 state champions. They beat Hilliard that year in the state title game 42-38. So we will have representation from one area team this year. The thing that was strange about the playoffs this year, Shane, no Gainesville, no Eastside, no Buchholz. None of those 3 teams made the state playoffs. I can't remember the last time that we didn't have at least one of those teams in the state playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt about it. You mentioned, well, we always talk about, I get on my soapbox, Mike, about the privates versus the publics on my show.
Yeah.
I don't follow high school basketball as closely as I do, obviously, high school football. When it comes down to the Final Four at all classifications, how does it usually look when you're looking at the private schools? Do they dominate as much as they do in the football area?
For the small classification, smaller, I guess, 2A, 3A, yes, not so much in the bigger classifications. In 2A, for example, you're looking at a Miami Christian that's still alive, a Bradenton Christian, but the cream of the crop is Orlando Christian Prep. So private or public, I mean, they've been really good. They are defending state champions. They're in the region final. They're going to play Central Florida Christian. And so you kind of notice that as the smaller classifications, your Tampa Catholics, for example, in 3A. But, Providence of Jacksonville, too. They're in the region final. They beat Bishop Snyder, which actually eliminated Trinity Catholic in the opening round of the playoffs. Trinity Catholic led that game for most of the game. I think they only trailed maybe 2 times in the whole game. Bishop Snyder hit a shot with about 2 seconds to play in the game to win it, and then Providence beat them by 1 in the region semifinals. So, again, you see that more at the lower classifications than you do at the higher classifications.
So baseball and softball are cranking up. Just briefly, I mean, I think most teams have only played like 1 or 2 games. Who in the North Central Florida area should be pretty strong in both sports?
I think North Marion, which got to the state championship game, in fact, last year, they are now lumped in the same district as Santa Fe. We'll get to Santa Fe in just a moment. But Trinity Catholic, obviously, Tommy does a great job with the Celtics there. I think the Trinity Catholic, North Marion, those 2 teams in particular in the Ocala area are 2 teams to watch. And then in the Gainesville area, let's see if Santa Fe can get back. They had their best regular season winning percentage in school history last year. They did lose some key players from that team, but they got some guys that were on that team last year that are coming back, including the Mitchum twins are back this year for Santa Fe. They actually lost to North Marion earlier this week, 3-1. But Santa Fe was 23-3 last year. They did get upset at home by Panama City Arnold in the first round of the state playoffs. Their pitching was really good last year. That was the key for them. They had less than a 1.00. I think it was a 0.79 ERA, ridiculous ERA last year. So if they can get the pitching going again, they've got a guy in Zane Starling who started in that game against North Marion. He's a University of North Florida commit. So I think Santa Fe is certainly a team to keep your eyes on. And then Buchholz, they're going to open up their regular season tonight. They will play against Tallahassee Lincoln. It's actually Ron Brooks, the head coach, told me that this is one of their youngest groups since he's been there, for 12 years. But despite the youth, they're talented. Noah Hayes is only a sophomore behind the plate, but he's a UCF commit. Anthony Wilkie, a sophomore, is a Clemson commit. They got a guy in Ty Robertson who actually is a senior that is a Hillsborough Community College commit. He'll be on the mound. Jeff Cardozo's son, Austin Cardozo, a sophomore, will be a part of that bullpen as well. So I think that Buchholz, Santa Fe, the two teams when you're talking high school baseball. As far as softball, last year Trenton won another state championship, but they've got a new coach this year. Todd Bryant was a ridiculous 57-1 the past 3 years. Led them to the state championship game last year, and they won the title last year. It was their second state title in the past 3 years. So their assistant coach takes over for them this year, and they actually beat Santa Fe earlier this week. So a good start to the season for Trenton. So we'll see. I haven't been able to get out to see any baseball, softball yet. I'm going to go see Gainesville and Lake City, Columbia on Friday night. Newberry baseball. I don't want to leave them out. They only lost one game last year, Shane, and they won a state championship, their first in school history. So I think Newberry will be in the mix as well.
Question here for you on the brought to you by Melton Law Facebook Live. Mike, is a school like Montverde Academy allowed to compete for the state title?
No, they're not, because they're not an FHSA school.
Yeah, they're like IMG, pretty much.
Correct. Yes. Yeah. Correct. Yeah, they're an independent. Yeah.
All right, Mike, before we let you go, there's a lot of we had some discussion today because this weekend at the coaches clinic down in Tampa, which is sponsored by Baker Sporting Goods, Billy Napier's going to be there, Cristobal, some other coaches. The big talk is the money that high school football coaches in the state of Florida do not make. You're close to a lot of coaches. We're seeing really good coaches leave the state to go to Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Do you think what can be done to help these coaches out, you think?
Gosh, that's a question I don't even know if I could begin to answer. It's long been a problem. It's why we've seen coaches bolt and go to Georgia, which does pay pretty well. But I've also seen coaches that have left Georgia and come back to the Sunshine State. I'm not sure. I have an answer for that. It's obviously very frustrating, but hopefully they can come up with a solution. The biggest thing coming up on Monday, in fact, Shane, the FHSA Football Advisory Committee, and it's kind of changing subject a little bit, but we talked about this a couple of weeks ago about this new rural versus metro suburban split. And recently, I want to say it was either the end of last week or maybe the first of this week, the executive director of the FHSA, George Tallman, he basically shot down the proposal. So it will be interesting to see what happens Monday, whether or not they're going to endorse this, since he has said that he does not endorse such a plan. Now, he's on his way out. Maybe it's a situation where he just doesn't want the new director to come in and have to deal with a new, implement this new program. So, but that appears to be the biggest thing with the FHSA is this new proposal that they have.
Yeah. And Joseph says on Facebook Live, the coaches only come back to Florida once they get their retirement from Georgia. I know some coaches that are coming back now because they only need like 2 or 3 years in the state of Florida, and they can double dip on their retirement. So, Mike, great stuff as always.
Yeah.
Great stuff as always. Let everybody know how they can check you out on Main Street Daily News.
Yep, we've got stuff up all the time at MainStreetDailyNews.com. I wrote a preseason covering some of the baseball and softball teams. I'm going to write a Buchholz baseball preview today, but that's at MainStreetDailyNews.com. I mentioned that Hawthorne is going to play in the state semifinals against Art Bradford. That will be next Wednesday, March the 2nd. They are playing at 6 o'clock. 5:30 pregame. Marty Palmer will have the play-by-play on 106.9 FM. Also audio online at imcountryradio.com. And then I'll have coverage of, as I mentioned earlier, Santa Fe College men's basketball playing in the state tournament. I'll have coverage of that at MainStreetDailyNews.com as well. And plus, as you know, we also post stuff at the PrepZone.com. We've got our regional all classification rankings coming up for baseball, softball, girls and boys basketball as well. So, like I said, busy time of year.
Good stuff, Mike. We appreciate your time, my man.
All right, Shane. Have a great one. Thank you.
Yep, that's Mike Ridaught. Join us on the Titan MR hotline, talking high school sports on the Baker Sporting Goods High School Roundup. We're going to take our final time out, come back, wrap up this Thursday edition.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, won't back down. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Great Clips, it's gonna be great. Our Gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, South State Bank, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co. Some of our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Doreen Wiebe Realtor, Caldwell Banker MM Parish, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Wrap Spot, Okido America, Style Cuts, Big Mills Cheesesteaks. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Are you tired of being sidelined by nagging pain? Hi, I'm Emmett Smith, Hall of Famer and Dance with the Stars champion. Happy to tell you about QC Kinetics and their biologic therapies for treating pain without drugs or surgery.
Are you suffering from chronic pain in your hips, knees, shoulder, or lower back? Are you tired of living with arthritis pain? QC Kinetics offers natural pain treatment that can repair and restore damaged tissue in your joints.
Listen, I know pain, and I've seen firsthand how powerful biologic therapies can be. Patients at QC Kinetics rave about their result because they're getting their lives back. They're getting moving again.
These exciting regenerative treatments used to be available only to pro athletes like Emmett. Now they're available to anyone thanks to QC Kinetics. Call today for your free consultation.
Get long-lasting results from my friends at QC Kinetics.
Call QC Kinetics 352-400-4550. In North Central Florida, call 352-400-4550. QC Kinetics 352-400-4550.
Welcome back to the Crime Prevention Security System Studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. At South State Bank, we understand that small businesses need a community business partner that they can rely on. South State has 4 convenient Alachua County locations. South State Bank, banking for member FDIC. I want to thank Brent Beaird and Mike Ridaught join us on the Titan MR hotline. This day in sports brought to you by Comfort Temp. Comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. Give them a call, 352-376-2366 for all your heating and air needs. This day in sports, where is it here? In 2013, Jimmy Johnson at the 55th Daytona 500 wins his second time there. Danica Patrick was the first female to start from pole position and also had the best finish by a woman. She came in 8th. That was in 2013. That's brought to you by our good friends at Comfort Temp. Facebook Live here brought to you by Meldon Law. John says, I endorse Shane to be George Tomlin's successor. I believe he's part of the FHSA. They don't want me running it because I'm going back to the old district. If you win your district, you get you're definitely in the playoffs. If you're second in their district, you make the playoffs and you travel. Privates would not be playing publics in the playoffs. They can play all they want in the regular season. And I would change, if you are 7A in football, you are 7A in basketball, you're 7A in every damn sport. It blows my mind how some of these schools can be 7A or 6A in football, and then in baseball and other sports are like 4A. It makes no sense. I do not understand it, but I don't understand a lot of things that go on with the FHSA here in the state of Florida. Andy says, rumblings that Troy Aikman's leaving Fox for Monday Night Football. Who would replace him? Sean Payton. That would be a good call. I've not heard that. Monday Night Football on ESPN is horrible. Peyton and Eli is the way to watch that game. They need to have Peyton and Eli on every Monday night and not even have a regular broadcast. That would be my suggestion there. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's program. Tomorrow we'll have JC on and we'll have the HBC, the head ball coach Steve Spurrier. So make sure you tune in for that. Shoot us some text and some Facebook Lives for the head ball coach. Have a great day. Today's show's a wrap, brought to you by Wrap Spot. See you tomorrow, folks.